Welcome back, my friends, to the final episode of our mini-series, The Scarcity Trap, How Poverty Rewires the Mind. We have been on quite a journey together. We started by confronting the myth of bad choices, the comfortable but safe narrative that poverty is a personal failing. We then went deep into the science, discovering the immense bandwidth tax that scarcity imposes on our minds and the claustrophobic tunneling it creates, forcing us to focus only on the immediate crisis. From there, we explored the emotional toll, the profound weight of the gaze from society that creates shame, stigma, and a body under chronic stress. And just when the picture seemed its bleakest, we turned a corner. We went in search of hope and found it in the psychology of resilience, the powerful assets of agency, community, and a growth mindset that allow people to break free. And now we've arrived at the final stage of our investigation. We've taken the trap apart piece by piece and studied its mechanics. We understand how it works. So we are left with the most important question of all. What do we do now? If we know the psychology, how can we use it not just to understand the problem, but to build better solutions? Today we move from diagnosis to design. Our goal is to outline a vision for a world that doesn't just try to alleviate poverty, but does so in a way that is empowering, effective, and above all, human. This is our final chapter in our mini-series, and we're going to talk about designing for dignity. I'm Danny, and this is a new episode from English Plus Podcast. For decades, the fight against poverty has been led by economists, politicians, and well-meaning charities. They have focused on the material side of the equation: money, food, housing, jobs. And all of those things are, of course, absolutely essential. You cannot think your way out of starvation. But for all their good intentions, many of these traditional approaches have a massive blind spot. They are psychologically uninformed. They are designed as if people are simple, rational calculators who will always act in their long-term best interest regardless of their circumstances. They fail to account for the very realities we've spent the last 4 episodes exploring: the depleted bandwidth, the decision fatigue, the shame, and the hopelessness. In fact, some anti-poverty programs are so poorly designed from a psychological perspective that they actually make things worse. Now, think about it. A program that requires you to fill out a 50-page application, visit 3 different offices during your work hours, and submit 6 different documents to prove you are poor enough to deserve help. What is that doing? It's imposing a massive administrative burden that acts as a second bandwidth tax on top of the one you're already paying. It triggers the weight of the gaze, making you perform your poverty over and over again to a skeptical system. It reinforces an external locus of control, sending the clear message, we are in charge, we will decide what you need and if you're worthy of it. It's a system designed around suspicion, not support. So what's the alternative? Well, the alternative is to put psychology at the very center of our design. It's to start every conversation about solutions with a simple question. How will this impact a person's bandwidth, their sense of agency, and their dignity? When we use that question as our guide, the path forward becomes remarkably clear. And now let's talk about the first solution: free bandwidth, don't tax it. Now let's start with the most fundamental problem we identified: the bandwidth tax. A mind overloaded with the calculus of survival has no room for anything else. So the most direct and powerful way to help is to free up that bandwidth. And the most effective way to do that is surprisingly simple: give people money. I'm talking about programs like unconditional cash transfers, or UCTs, or the related concept of a universal basic income, or UBI. The idea is straightforward. Provide a regular, predictable amount of cash directly to people in need with no strings attached. Now, This idea often makes people uncomfortable. It runs headfirst into the myth of bad choices we busted in episode 1. No strings attached? Won't they just waste it on alcohol or TVs? The judgmental gaze is powerful. But here's what decades of research from hundreds of studies all over the world, from Kenya to Canada to India, have shown. Overwhelmingly, the answer is no. People do not waste the money. They use it on what you and I would use it on. They pay for their children's school fees. They buy medicine for an elderly parent. They fix their leaking roof. They invest in a small business, buying a sewing machine or a cow. They pay off high-interest debt. They are the world's foremost experts on their own needs, and when given the resources and the trust, they act on that expertise. But I want to focus on the psychological impact because it's revolutionary. Compare a UCT to a traditional food voucher program. The voucher can only be used at certain stores for certain approved items. It requires you to know the rules, to separate your groceries at the checkout line, and to perform your poverty for everyone to see. It's a cumbersome, high bandwidth, high shame transaction. Now imagine receiving that same amount as cash in your bank account or on a mobile payment app. Suddenly, the cognitive load plummets. You don't have to manage a complex set of rules. You just have to manage a budget, something you are already an expert at. The shame evaporates. You go to the store and pay just like everyone else. Your dignity is intact. Most importantly, your sense of agency is restored. The message is no longer, "We don't trust you." The message is, "We trust you." The locus of control shifts from an external bureaucracy back to you. You are no longer a passive recipient of aid. You are an active agent in charge of your own life. Freeing up bandwidth and restoring agency is a powerful 1-2 punch that creates the mental space for people to start solving their own problems. It doesn't just provide relief, it provides capacity. And now let's talk about solution number 2, build on-ramps, not obstacle courses. The second principle of designing for dignity is simplicity. Even the best-intentioned support programs are useless if people can't access them. As we've discussed, a person living in the scarcity tunnel has limited bandwidth for navigating complexity. Every complicated form, every unnecessary trip to an office is a barrier. The world of aid is filled with what scholars call administrative burdens. They are the hassles, the hurdles, and the psychological costs of dealing with bureaucracy. And these burdens are not felt equally. For a person with time, money, and mental slack, a complicated form is an annoyance. For a person in poverty, it can be an insurmountable obstacle. Let me give you a real-world example. In the United States, there's a tax credit program for low-income families that is one of the most effective anti-poverty tools available. But for years, a huge percentage of eligible families, actually millions of them, never received it. Why? Because to get it, you had to know the program existed, know you were eligible, and then navigate the often complex process of filing taxes. The administrative burden was too high. Then organizations like Code for America stepped in. They took a psychologically informed approach. They asked, how can we make this simple? They created a simplified, mobile-friendly website written in plain language that allowed people to sign up for the credit in under 15 minutes. The result? They helped families access billions of dollars in aid that they were entitled to but couldn't get because the old system was designed like an obstacle course. This is what designing for dignity looks like in practice. It means assuming that if people aren't using your service, the problem isn't with them. It's with your service. It means building clear, simple, respectful on-ramps to support instead of obstacle courses designed to weed people out. It's a simple shift in perspective that has profound results. It lowers the cognitive load, reduces learned helplessness, and sends a powerful message that says, this is here to help you, not to test you. That's not the end of our solutions. We still have solution number 3, foster connection, don't isolate. Our final design principle is about rebuilding the psychological assets of resilience. As we learned last episode, agency and hope are hard to sustain on your own. They need the scaffolding of community. Yet, so many of our systems treat poverty as an individual problem to be solved through isolated transactions. You meet with a caseworker alone. You receive a check in the mail. This approach ignores one of the most powerful resources we have: each other. A psychologically informed system would do the opposite. It would intentionally foster social capital. It would create opportunities for connection, peer support, and mentorship. Think back to the story of Maria, who started her journey by saving $1. That happened in a group setting. The power wasn't just in the act of saving, it was in sharing that experience with others who understood her struggle. It was in the accountability and encouragement that came from her peers. We see this in successful programs all over the world. Micro-lending circles, where a group of women co-guarantee each other's loans, creating a powerful support system. Mentorship programs that connect first-generation college students with professionals who can help them navigate a world that is new to them. Even simple community gardens can be powerful anti-poverty tools, not just because they provide food, but because they provide a space for connection and shared work. My friends, these programs work because they understand a fundamental human truth. We are social creatures. We draw strength, knowledge, and hope from our connections with others. Designing for dignity means creating systems that combat the isolation of poverty and rebuild the rich, supportive fabric of community. And so, my friends, our journey comes to an end. We started with a simple question that has haunted the conversation about poverty for centuries. Are people poor because they make bad decisions? Or do they make bad decisions because they are poor? After everything we have explored, the science of bandwidth, the claustrophobia of the tunnel, the weight of the gaze, the power of resilience, the answer is now clear. Poverty is not a character flaw. It's a cognitive and emotional siege. Poverty itself creates the conditions that lead to the very behaviors society so often condemns. The scarcity trap is real, and it is a powerful, self-perpetuating force on the human mind. And if that is true, it changes everything. It means the solution is not to fix the people. It's not about teaching better budgeting to someone who has no money to budget. It's not about demanding more grit from someone whose resilience is already stretched to its breaking point. The solution is to change the circumstances. The solution is to design systems that are built on a foundation of trust, not suspicion. Systems that free up bandwidth, not tax it even further. Systems that create agency, not dependence. Systems that foster community, not isolation. Systems that account for the simple, profound, and universal truth of what it means to be a human being under pressure. This understanding doesn't have to be a source of guilt or blame. It's a source of liberation. It frees us from the old, tired narratives of judgment and opens the door to a new approach, one rooted in empathy, guided by science, and aimed at the one thing that every single person deserves: dignity. Well, my hope in creating this series was to leave you with a new lens. A lens to see the person in the grocery store line not with suspicion, but with understanding. A lens to see the headlines about poverty not as a story about other people's failings, but as a story about systems and circumstances. A lens to see the world and all the people in it just a little more clearly and a little more compassionately. And with that, we come to the end of our mini-series for this week, my friends. Thank you very much for taking this journey with me. And just to remind you at the end, if you want to support me and my podcast, you can do that by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or on Patreon. You can find the links in the description of the episode. Again, thank you very much for listening. Remember, never stop learning with English Plus Podcast. I'll see you again next time.